While we don't know for sure what the plans are with Jonathan Majors no longer as a part of the MCU, it seems likely that Marvel will need to fully pivot with this project. After all, Avengers 5 was originally titled as Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, but what would that be without Kang? Well, they could simply recast Kang. Some have theorized a more creative or more bold solution will likely come about. Just fully pivot. Drop the Kang storyline and do something entirely different. Honestly, I feel like this could be the shakeup that we actually kinda need, even though I do like Kang, and in terms of the story and character I did like what they were building with him in the MCU. But if we aren't going to have Kang as our main focus / main antagonist of Avengers 5, what will we have? What's left? Or what potentially could replace this mainline plot? The MCU has some time to still figure that out, and as for us, we all have our theories. Some think Doctor Doom might take Kang's place, and it's that simple. Others have been suggesting that an entirely different team or storyline could be used as the focus for this film. Some have even said these stories and teams have actually already had their seeds planted in recent Marvel Cinematic projects. With whatever is coming up next in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think a lot of people are expecting that the whole status quo at Marvel is likely going to change. Why do we think this? Because it seems as though we might be hitting the reset button in Deadpool 3, or at least doing, let's say, a soft reset and reconfiguration of our focuses and priorities in the MCU. The Fox X-Men movies will once again be referenced, but this time it will be in MCU canon, which is pretty crazy. What does this mean? Well, what some are thinking, it could mean that we are going to see a changing of the guards. Out with the old, in with the new, when it comes to X-Men at least. The fact that Secret Wars also might play a role here could mean that we'll see a complete restructuring of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That is what happened anyways when Secret Wars happened in 2015 in the comics at least. We got a whole new world out of it, and then afterwards a refresh somewhat on the multiverse, the mainline multiverse, after it was rebuilt by the Fantastic Four, with the project to do so spearheaded by Reed Richards and Molecule Man. There have just simply been too many references to this next one for it to not make some kind of appearance in the next Avengers film. I actually think instead of Avengers 5, we could get a completely new team known as the Young Avengers, so there will be no Avengers Kang Dynasty, it'll just be Young Avengers. The Young Avengers are a group of teenage and young adult heroes in the comics who are just coming into their own when they assemble. They are fans of the Avengers who band together to create their own superhero group. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've already seen some of them appear, including Kate Bishop as Hawkeye, Eli Bradley, who goes on to become Patriot, Billy, the son of Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, who in the comics is known as the hero Wiccan, Cassie Lang, who becomes known as the hero Stature, and America Chavez. We've also been introduced to new heroes who could find a place on this team based on their experience level and their age range, namely Miss Marvel aka Kamala Khan. In the comics, Kamala is part of a different young hero team known as the Champions, but the Champions doesn't really have as much oomph to it as a superhero team name, and honestly we're missing some people for that team to work. We would also need Miles, we would need Nova, we just have more players from the Young Avengers, which makes me think that that is the team we'll be getting in regards to any Avengers lineups, and if anything, Miss Marvel will just be joining up with the Young Avengers. That is, of course, unless we go in a completely different direction. This would be quite different, but honestly, I would be so into it. And we do have a few players in the MCU who are from this alternate Avengers team as well. This team is known as the West Coast Avengers. Some have theorized that this team could be where we head next with the MCU when it comes to the Avengers team. Now, the West Coast Avengers are an LA-based offshoot of the Avengers team, and some of the major players for the team have already been introduced, while other heroes not normally affiliated, like let's say Shang-Chi, have simply been based on the West Coast in the MCU. While Shang-Chi is not normally a team member in the comics for the West Coast Avengers, this doesn't mean that he couldn't be part of this team. He could end up simply joining because of where he was initially based in his film, in San Francisco. While no longer canon, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also introduces Mockingbird, who's also on the West Coast Avengers, and other than that, we have also had White Vision introduced, who actually first appears in that version of himself alongside his wife Scarlet Witch in West Coast Avengers issue number 45 in the comics. Some have theorized that if and when we get an Avengers 5 film, that is where we shall see the X-Men get to team up with the Avengers. Or is it possible instead of teaming up, they'll actually be enemies of one another. In the comics, there is a story that is famously known as Avengers vs. X-Men. It's a bit of a mixed bag overall, I'd say, but it's pretty cool in the sense that we get to see Marvel's biggest teams go up against one another. In Avengers vs. X-Men, the conflict is basically over the Phoenix Force. The X-Men have this belief that the Phoenix Force returning to Earth could actually be a good thing and could actually help them to reignite the mutant population, which somewhat is not doing pretty good at that point. It's dipped significantly after the mass extinction event on Genosha, which was then followed up by the events of House of M. So yeah, mutants were not doing so hot at that time. On the other side of the coin, the Avengers are actually hoping to destroy the Phoenix Force because the Phoenix hasn't inherently been a great thing when it's come about, which honestly, fair enough. Personally, I think this event would be a little awkward to fit in, but if you changed it up a bit, it could be possible. Although the one thing I will say is superheroes find reasons to fight all the time. Usually that is how a superhero team up actually begins, with some confusion which leads to conflict, then it resolves, and then it leads to a team up instead. So maybe we'll get something like that. We could just call it, Avengers vs. X-Men, but it would be different. This is an even wilder theory than AV to me, but some are theorizing, and I gotta say, I think it's interesting, that where we could be headed next is entirely different than even just, putting the X-Men in there. Instead, we could be zeroing in on one of the original MCU Avengers members and doing, get this, the World War Hulk storyline. Likely this theory primarily comes from the end of She-Hulk, where Jennifer brings her new love interest, Matt Murdock, to a family event and there meets her nephew for the first time, Scar. It's also been alluded to throughout She-Hulk that, Hulk was off in space. That's a thing that gets mentioned, so that could be a thing. Scar is Hulk's son who was born on the planet Sakaar. Initially, Hulk did not know that Scar had survived as the planet was decimated when the ship which sent him to Sakaar exploded. In the comics, Hulk has not actually chosen exile for himself, but instead was basically forced into exile by a secret genius superhero group known as the Illuminati, who work behind the scenes to manipulate and control the world in order to protect it. And the Illuminati there exist in the main continuity, so not like how we saw in Multiverse of Madness. Also, if you think the Illuminati don't sound very heroic, you're kinda right. While they are made up of heroes, they have made some morally questionable decisions as a group throughout the years. One of those decisions, of course, being to exile the Hulk. Maybe not their best choice there. Hulk believed that the Illuminati who sent him off-world are also the ones responsible for his ship exploding, which decimated the planet of Sakaar, which he had actually fought to make his new home at that point, making a new life for himself with his romantic partner and co-ruler Kyra. When Kyra perished, she was pregnant with their son, so hence why Hulk assumed Scar was no longer alive. However, Scar does survive and eventually comes looking for his father with his own vengeful vendetta in tow, because yeah, he was alive and he kinda grew up pretty rough because Hulk just dipped. Granted, there is a lot that is different from this story in the MCU, so while World War Hulk would definitely be cool to see, it seems like we would need some more built up before we could actually get there, unless the story is going to be drastically changed for the MCU, which honestly could be possible. For those of us whose little hearts blossomed at the end of the Loki series, who have seen Loki's journey come full circle, I think most of us would love to see a little nod or appearance of the God of Stories. I know I would. Some have theorized that with the TVA's appearance, we may also get some kind of Loki reference or appearance here in the film. I personally would also love that. Which character cameo do you most want to see in this film? Let me know in the comments. A lot of folks have various theories about this part of the second trailer. I know I have my theories, but I love how we all have an idea for who we want to be on the other side of this. Personally, when I saw Wolverine and Deadpool jumping through what appears to be a magical portal, it honestly looks exactly like a sling ring portal. I wanted Wong. That's right, Sorcerer Supreme Wong to be on the other side of that portal. But a meme has been circling the internet that has made another theory quite popular among fans. And I gotta say, having now seen the memes, I kinda love it. That it is in fact Ned Leeds from No Way Home. Yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home making the portal, and that he accidentally opened up a portal into Deadpool 3, only to see Wolverine and Deadpool obviously about to jump through when he would of course then promptly close that portal. So this would just be a joke. Honestly, it's a pretty good theory because it fits with the Deadpool humor, and I think it would also be funny. I mean, it would be maybe a little less funny now because we have the meme, so I kinda hope it's not true. But at the same time, it works. Could be possible. Is it possible we will go to Toronto in this film, or at least somewhere near it? Something interesting that I spotted in the second trailer is during the part where they are at the ruins in the second trailer, which many people are thinking could be a version of Battle World or simply the wasteland of the realities after massive incursions have blended up all the continuities together, we spot what appears to be, get this, the CN freaking Tower. It's not super noticeable since it's up in the top right corner, so it's kind of like to the side of the frame, off to the side, but it looks like the ruins of the CN Tower. Very interesting and cool considering both Wolverine and Deadpool are actually Canadian in the comics. It could just be an homage, as Ryan Reynolds himself is of course also a Canadian, or it could be a hint at one of the locations we'll travel to or we could see in the film. At the beginning of the second trailer as well, although the bar does not give me Toronto vibes as someone that, you know, is based there, we also see a Canadian flag hanging up against the wall behind what appears to be a jukebox during the scene where Deadpool approaches Logan and asks him, you know, to join him. This makes me think Canada could be a major setting in the film, but whether it will be more urban or more rural Canada, we'll kind of have to wait and see where we end up. I'd love to see Toronto somewhere in here though, because that would just be like super awesome as a Torontonian. I feel like, yes, we made it. Another interesting moment in the second trailer could actually be revealing who the real villain of Deadpool 3 is, a twist that I kind of would love to see incorporated into the film, if of course that's the way the film is deciding to lean. During a fight scene in the forest with, you know, the snow on the ground, we see Deadpool fighting what appears to be TVA agents, who resemble hunters, although the design is a bit different from their appearance in Loki if they are hunters. No numbers on their helmets, that's something that the hunters have, I noticed in Loki, but they do seem to be wearing the TVA logo on them. Deadpool seems to be fighting them with what appears to be like a branch and doing a pretty great job, to be honest. Definitely earning his reputation as one of the most deadly mercs in Marvel here. This makes me wonder if Cassandra Nova is really the big villain of the film, or if something else is going on with her and we're being a little bit misled here in terms of her role. I do think she and this film's Wolverine might have some history, but I also would not be surprised if we have to see our heroes reluctantly team up with her to fight a greater threat. Perhaps that greater threat is the TVA or whoever they really are. I'm wondering if this version of the TVA that we see here is maybe not even the TVA at all, or is maybe just the TVA but they're being manipulated by someone behind the scenes. I know Loki just saved the TVA and kind of all of reality, but I also find it interesting that we don't see Hunter B-15, Sylvie, Ouroboros, or Mobius just anywhere in these trailers with the TVA. Though of course it could be possible that while not in the trailers, we have so far that any number of the TVA employees that we're familiar with could appear in the full-length feature. They could just be hiding them from us and they want to surprise us with them, which would also make sense. So it seems like there may be some pruning going on, or at least there was some pruning that happened a while back. In the trailer we can see the purple cloud that is Alioth. Alioth also seems to appear near where Cassandra Nova's base is, which is, I believe, the corpse of a giant Ant-Man. This whole place gives off Mad Max or post-apocalyptic vibes, but the presence of Alioth would also suggest that we are actually at the place where all things and people who are pruned end up, which is interesting. Kind of would make sense for all of the Fox folks to be here. Another interesting point that some have made is that this Wolverine is likely not the one we know from Logan and the Fox films. The version of Wolverine that we saw meet his end in Logan was supposed to have his story finished there. It was tragic and bittersweet, and everyone was pretty much happy with how that ended. Those who made the film, of course, included. I personally enjoyed this ending as well. In fact, Logan might be my favorite of all the X-Men films that I've ever watched. I do love Wolverine, and this film just fits so perfectly for me. It also has some of the best fights in my opinion, so if it isn't the Wolverine we know, who is it? A lot of folks have theories. Many have theorized that this is a version of basically the Old Man Logan story Wolverine, but where that Wolverine was manipulated into eliminating his fellow X-Men by Mysterio's illusions, instead this version of him was manipulated by Cassandra Nova, who took a hold of his mind. However, it's also interesting to note that there are a ton of seemingly Fox-based mutants in this trailer as well. Could it be possible that this is a live-action version of the animated Wolverine even? even? I don't know. The costume is a bit different, but I'm definitely getting some I don't know, I'm getting some X-Men the Animated Series vibes from this Wolverine in the second trailer anyways. Although, you know, there are swears, which is not usually how we do in the animated show, but I don't know, something about it. I'm just gonna plant that seed. While there are many theories about who this Wolverine might be in regards to his place in the multiverse, it's also possible that we could still get some kind of Logan reference or even an X-23 appearance. The fight scene in the forest in the snow seems to take place in the same forest we saw at the end of Logan. Many have noted that the tree stump that appears is the same one that we saw in the Logan film, so people are thinking maybe we're gonna go that route, and also they have alluded to the Logan film before in promotional material, so. Something I noticed between the first and second trailer that was different made me dream up a theory of my own in regards to Wolverine's role in this film, and just which Wolverine or Wolverines we might be getting here. Patch seems to appear, or be implied to appear in this film in the first trailer, but then in the second trailer there's no sign of him anywhere. Interesting. While many have also theorized that Hugh Jackman will be donning Logan's Patch disguise, super iconic in the comics. If you know Patch, he's just great. It's also interesting that when we did see him in the first trailer, you know, we didn't see his face. Will this Patch also be the same version of Wolverine that we're seeing team up with Deadpool in the trailers, but just in disguise? Or is it possible that this Patch could be an alternate version of Wolverine, either altogether or an alternate version that's in disguise? Some have theorized that there will be another Wolverine in the film, and that the other actor who is playing him, there have been many theories in regards to who that could be, will be taking up Hugh Jackman's place as the new Wolverine for this new X-cinematic era that we're about to jump into. Something else that feels weird about the second trailer is the shot where we see Deadpool and Wolverine walking down the street with a destroyed series of shops behind them. The famous Liefeld's Just Feet being one such shop behind them, a reference to of course Rob Liefeld, the creator of Deadpool, who is notoriously critiqued for his poor drawings of feet in the comics. And honestly it's pretty true. During this slow-mo walk, the shot feels super wide, which could suggest that there might be more people in the shot in the film on the right side who were then digitally removed for the purpose of this trailer, which we've seen Marvel do before and other films do before. These could be folks that Deadpool has picked up along the way to join his multiversal team, but revealing them would be a bit too spoilery for them to include in the trailer. A multiversal team? I wonder what they'd call themselves. Maybe The Exiles? Something I have been wondering about for some time is if this is the film that is going to introduce us to the X-Men. No. Not the Fox X-Men, obviously we know them already, but the new team of X-Men, the one that we're supposedly getting in the MCU at some point. I thought it might be honestly dead and gone by the time we got the X-Men with all the plans Marvel and Disney seem to have that they kind of needed to get through before the X-Men were ever going to even be introduced, but it seems like there might be a shift coming as some of their plans have fallen by the wayside and been discarded or just straight up fallen apart. It has made room for the X-Men to maybe appear sooner than we thought. Could this be the film where we meet our main roster of the mutants of this age? I certainly hope so. I would love that. Although I'm not gonna lie, if Jean Grey or Madeline Pryor is in there, or if we get some kind of Squirrel Girl appearance, a mutant but not usually an X-Men, I will be a little sad that I didn't even get a chance to audition for any of those roles, because I would honestly love to play Jean or Squirrel Girl. And obviously with Jean, you gotta be Maddie too, cause clone.
Let's just swing right into it and start with Venom. That's one theory that's big among fans and might just have some truth to it. At the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, there was a post-credit scene featuring Tom Hardy's Venom. The movie was all about different versions of the same person coming into one universe. That's how we got the iconic triple Spider-Man sequence. Thank the Marvel gods for that one. Hardy's Eddie Brock ends up in Holland's world and he is very confused as to how he got there, what is going on, where he is. This poor bartender is trying to explain it to him, but he's struggling. At the end of No Way Home though, a spell is cast and everyone returns to their universe, so Eddie disappears. The problem here is that the symbiote Venom is kind of like slime, and a piece of him fell off. That means a little bit of Venom is established in the Hollandverse, and it's very likely that the bartender is going to have an unexpected ending to their closing shift. Spider-Man films have handled Venom before. Hopefully the new Spider-Man film does it again and addresses the little sim drop we saw. The studio that made Venom is now making a movie based on Kraven the Hunter. It's starring Aaron Taylor Johnson. I will be there opening night. Fans online are wondering if Kraven might ever make an appearance in the MCU. The villain had some pretty iconic face-offs with Spider-Man in the comics, so fans wonder if any of those will make it to the big screen. The most notable of their brawls might not make it though. I don't know if people will ever be ready to see Tom Holland buried alive for real this time. It's unlikely that Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven would be the one facing off against Holland unless there's multiversal messes happening. Johnson already exists in the MCU as Wanda's brother Quicksilver. He was buried, not alive though. Marvel does love causing chaos. Bringing in Johnson might just be the perfect move. This isn't really a theory anymore because it was technically confirmed, but it was confirmed back in 2021 before No Way Home even hit theaters, and things can change. The Tom Holland Spider-Verse is going to get not one, not two, but 3 more films, making an entire new trilogy. I personally really do hope they do 3 more. I will be there. The trilogy was confirmed by Amy Pascal in 2021. Pascal is a Sony producer that worked on the previous Tom Holland movies and the Spider-Verse movies, so she is probably a very trustworthy person to listen to when it comes to this sort of thing. Her exact words were, "This is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. Girl, I am so there." Tom Holland has since confirmed that the next Hollandverse film is in its early stages. Zendaya is reported to be coming back, and Jacob has also expressed his interest. Things are looking good. MJ has completely forgotten Peter at the end of No Way Home. It's very sad. I did cry. I'm not afraid to admit that on the internet. While this is an absolute tragedy, it does provide an opening for Gwen Stacy to make an appearance. Mary Jane is Peter's most popular girlfriend, but Gwen is a close second. She really grew in popularity after Emma Stone's excellent portrayal of the character in the Amazing Spider-Man films. The 4th movie could be spent watching Peter try and get his friends to remember him, but the ending of No Way Home suggested that Peter might be more interested in leaving well enough alone to preserve his friend's safety. So if Marvel continues down that path, they might kick off the next trilogy by starting Peter's college journey and establishing the romance between Gwen and Peter, which then begs the question, who could play Gwen? I've seen some suggestions like Millie Alcock, Emma Mackey, Jenna Ortega. I think Meg Donnelly could do it. Let me know your choice. If Peter is going to meet Gwen, he might as well meet the Osborns too. If they are going to make 6 movies, they have the time. If they go the college route with the future Spider-Man movies, Peter could meet Harry in college. I want Timothée Chalamet in the role. I know it's a basic choice, but I like it, and they're already friends in real life. Perfect. What's an interesting thing to bring up is that in the comics, Harry's girlfriend is Liz Allen, and Liz was Peter's love interest in Homecoming. That would be an awkward meeting for only Peter as the only person who knows about their history. Norman would be interesting to see in the Hollandverse because Peter already has met him. It was him from a different universe, but it was a Norman. Peter knows what Norman's life will turn out to be. He might try to stop his fate the same way he did in No Way Home, and then probably they do that thing where the steps Peter took to prevent the problem end up being the cause for it, and it's all very tragic. If Marvel truly wants to start a new chapter of Peter's life, why not add in some new characters? Another part of Peter Parker's character is that he works for the Daily Bugle. Now that he has no one in his life, and presumably no money, Kid needs a job. The end of Far From Home established that J. Jonah Jameson and the DailyBugle.net exist in the Hollandverse, and it seems to be a site that gets the scoop on superhero activities. Some fans pointed out that No Way Home, even though it was the 3rd Spider-Man movie, it did a lot of first movie things. Typically, the Uncle Ben, in this case Aunt May, great power moment happens in the 1st movie. Peter isn't dating MJ in the 1st movie. It does kind of feel like they are doing a factory reset here, or that the first 2 Holland movies were more like prequels. In the event that the Jameson actor J.K. Simmons doesn't want to commit to 3 more movies, they could make his son do it. Call him J. Jonah Jameson Jr. We have yet to see a live-action Black Cat, and that's a crime. We were supposed to get one in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but we all know what happened there. Anne Hathaway was rumored to be Black Cat when the other Spider-Man 4 was in talks in the late 2000s, but that didn't happen either. What is funny with Black Cat is one of her powers is literally bad luck. What is worse luck than constantly not being in the movies? You're rumored to be in a movie and then it just doesn't happen. I cannot think of worse luck than that. The character is really translating into real life with this one. Fans theorize that with the clean slate Peter is now getting, he has the opportunity to be put in the kind of situation where he might meet Felicia Hardy. Maybe she's in the year above him in college, maybe she's breaking into Harry's apartment. The possibilities are endless here. The character of Black Cat brings out different sides to the Spider-Man character. She was originally a villain after all. I want this to be true because it is about time. We have waited long enough, Marvel. We know you're interested in bringing her to the big screen. It is time. There is in-universe proof that Scorpion exists and is interested in finding Spider-Man, and yet Marvel has done nothing with that yet. A post-credit scene in Spider-Man Homecoming featured Vulture in jail. He gets approached by another inmate, Scorpion, asking for info about Spider-Man. The Vulture doesn't give it up, he walks away. That happened almost 7 years ago. Where was that going? Does Scorpion still care about Spider-Man? Some fans shared online that Scorpion would be a good choice as the villain for the next film, as he is already established in the universe. Plus, he seems to be from literally the same area as Spider-Man. Battling a neighborhood villain makes Tom Holland the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. There doesn't need to be any complicated explanation of how he ended up in New York, just a jailbreak. That's easy compared to some other things the MCU has done. One popular fan theory is that Miles Morales might make his live-action debut. We know a Miles exists in the Hollandverse because his uncle Aaron does. This theory would be best supported by a trilogy. Peter remains the focus of the first film, Miles comes in later. This is also because it's likely the studios will hold off on a live-action Miles until the animated masterpieces are all released. If Miles comes into play, then he can be Spider-Man, and that means Peter can take on a more mentor role. Tom is free to go work on other projects, but has a place in the MCU should he want to return. And most important, they let Peter live. Marvel loves to put an end to characters once the actors' contracts are up, because if they don't, it creates problems like, why isn't Iron Man helping with this? Where is Captain America? Having Spidey take on a mentor role will hopefully make enough sense that the studios won't feel the need to bury him alive. A very popular fan theory is Evil Ned. I remember first seeing this theory right after No Way Home came out, but it's still going strong. Peter Parker can't have any good things. He has to always be in a constant state of suffering. It is the law. Ned Leeds exists in the comics as well as the movies. So far in the movies, he is a lovable guy, super sweet, loyal friend, guy in the chair. But in the comics, Ned turns into the Hobgoblin. It would be tough to watch the sweet character go through that, but the conflict for Peter, that would be very cool to see. Now it's just a question of how Ned could get there. Brainwashing might be the answer. If he gets brainwashed, then they could unbrainwash him at the end or something. It would be interesting to see how Peter handles the fights. He would certainly feel the need to pull back, holding out on the hope that Ned would soon return to normal. There was also that line in No Way Home that Ned says after he finds out that the other Peter's besties turned against him. He says, "I promise you, I won't turn into a supervillain and try to kill you." Something tells me he just might.
Coming in at number 10 today is Wolverine will wear his iconic suit. We're kicking this list off with this fan theory because it is now 100% confirmed thanks to some behind the scenes photos. Fans often said that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was a near perfect portrayal of the comic book character, except for maybe 2 things. The first would be he is just way too tall, but we can live with that. The second, however, is the fact that we have never gotten to see him wear Wolverine's iconic yellow and blue suit. The suit was referenced in a joke in the first X-Men movie, and in an alternate ending to the Wolverine, Logan received the suit as a gift from Yukio, but he never wore it in that film or any others that came after it. Kevin Feige does tend to listen to what fans want from time to time. For example, John Krasinski appearing as Mr. Fantastic in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Well, thanks to the on-set photos, we know for a fact that Hugh will indeed don a version of the classic yellow and blue suit, and everyone is here for it. Number 9, R for Rage. Fans Fans were extremely happy to learn that the upcoming Deadpool 3 will indeed be R-rated, just as it should be and just like the previous two films. And this is despite the fact that it takes place in the Disney's MCU. Now, the Fox X-Men films were all rated PG-13, which did not allow for Wolverine, aka the movie's main protagonist, to really be a one-to-one portrayal of his comic book self. Wolverine is one anger-prone dude who is more than a little okay with sending fools to the afterlife in spectacularly over-the-top fashion. While we did get to see this finally in the Logan film and the director's cut of the Wolverine, which I think is highly underrated, which were both also rated R, throwing in Deadpool alongside this R-rated Wolverine leaves us thinking that we are going to be seeing a full-on Wolverine Berserker rage at some point in this movie, and we the fans are very okay with that. A more comic book accurate Wolverine is always a yes. Number 8. Multarine. It is still unclear which Wolverine Hugh Jackman will be playing, meaning we have no idea which universe this version of the character will be from. Over the course of Jackman's long time playing the hero, he has primarily been from the Fox universe, actually pretty much entirely, but being as versatile as he is, every outing as Wolverine has felt different in its own way. It's worth noting that the character's passing in Logan is still going to be respected and maintained, so we know that this isn't going to be that Wolverine. However, it's certainly possible that he'll reprise his role from the Fox universe, maybe at a different time, or he could be portraying a Logan from a completely different universe. Or, hear me out here, he could play multiple different versions of Wolverine from the multiverse. Given that Deadpool 3 takes place later in the MCU's multiverse saga, this is highly likely. Number 7. Passing the torch. Interestingly, the fact that Jackman could play different Wolverines from across the multiverse means that there are other versions of Wolverine, and that doesn't mean they necessarily need to be played by the same person. For his appearance in Deadpool 3, it was actually Jackman who approached Ryan Reynolds wanting to reprise the character. Reynolds admitted that he was surprised to hear the proposition given that he'd been asking his friend for a long time and always got a no. Hugh is obviously excited about the project and wants to see where this new direction can take him. Some fans suggest that Hugh's Wolverine is not a one-off deal, that he will likely play the character leading into Secret Wars. But we also know that Hugh was pretty keen on retiring from the character, with Logan being an ending for Wolverine that he truly loved and wanted to respect. What I'm thinking here is that either Deadpool 3 or maybe Secret Wars will introduce us to whoever will be taking over the character of Wolverine, or who will be filling in the shoes, whether that be another male actor or possibly the return of Daphne Keane as Laura Kinney X-23. Number 6. The Weapon X program. Now, as true fans of Deadpool know, he actually is not technically a mutant. At least, not in the comics. His origin was slightly altered for the Deadpool films, having his latent mutant gene forcibly activated. In the comics, however, he was offered help for his cancer in the form of Department K, a special weapons development branch of the Canadian government. Wilson became a test subject in Department K's branch of the joint US-Canadian Superhuman Enhancement Project, aka the Weapon X program. In the comics, his cancer was saved due to him being given a healing factor derived from another Department K agent, and that would be Wolverine. My point from all of this, given the inclusion of both Deadpool and Wolverine in Deadpool 3 and their closely tied past, is that we are going to get the introduction of Weapon X into the MCU. Possibly. Number 5. Intro of the MCU mutants. But that's not the only question that Wolverine and Deadpool's intro into the MCU brings. While Deadpool is not technically a mutant, Wolverine is and always has been, and so are many of the other characters featured in the Deadpool movies up until this point. While we have no idea how exactly Marvel is planning to do this, it seems that Deadpool 3 may actually also be the introduction of mutants into the MCU for the first time. I, for one, really hope this is true. Mutants and the X-Men are such a big part of Marvel Comics. For me, there has always been a massive mutant-sized hole in the MCU, and it's high time that it was filled. And thanks to what we know of the Deadpool 3 cast so far, it seems that mutants will indeed be a big part of this movie. Number 4. Casting and cameos. While Hugh Jackman's inclusion in the film has been one of the major talking points surrounding the film so far, we do know a few other names that are included in the cast that make things interesting. interesting. From the previous Deadpool movies, we will be seeing Marina Baccarin, who played Vanessa, Leslie Uggams as Blind Al, thank God, and Karen Sony as Dopinder, also thank God. But we will also be seeing Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead again, and Stefan Kapikic, I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name, will again voice Colossus, further confirming that even more mutants will be featured in this film. What really excited me, but seems to be flying under the radar, but it's also been confirmed that Jennifer Garner will be appearing as Elektra, reprising the character from Ben Affleck's 2003 Daredevil and her own 2005 spin-off movie after a nearly 20-year hiatus. We have no idea if this will be just a small cameo or if she will feature in some larger way, but it's definitely noteworthy. No word on Affleck as Daredevil though yet. Not yet. It is also heavily rumored that Mobius M. Mobius and Miss Minutes from the Loki TV show are also going to crop up. And since we have Wolverine and we have already Patrick Stewart's Professor X in Multiverse of Madness, I am really hoping for some more of Fox's X-Men to make an appearance. Number 3, Hugh Jackman as Hugh Jackman. This one is a bit of a silly little one. Given the nature of the Deadpool movies so far, where Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are actually people that exist in the same universe as the films, I really think we will be seeing Hugh Jackman as himself in the film. Maybe in some small little side joke moment. Now initially, a lot of people were worried that Hugh would only be appearing in this film as himself as one big joke. Personally, I don't think he would have done as much promotion as he already has if that was the case, because he knows that will definitely disappoint fans. But also, thanks to those pictures from the Deadpool 3 set, we know that he is indeed going to be playing as Wolverine, at least for some part of this film. I just think it would be hilarious to have a scene with Hugh playing Hugh. That's all. Number 2, buddy cop movie. A long time ago, before we knew that Deadpool 3 was going to be bringing the character into the MCU, we had heard that Ryan's idea for the movie would be like a Wolverine and Deadpool buddy cop kind of movie. And while the inclusion into the MCU does drastically change how this movie can play out, I don't see any reason it should mean that we can't get a Deadpool Wolverine buddy cop movie. Imagine seeing like Laura Kinney show up and is lost and alone, and Deadpool and Wolverine had to go searching for her, traveling across the country or across multiple different universes, meeting new characters, running into old ones, and introducing the audience to a few they've never even seen before. And speaking of that, finally in at number 1, new characters. A new movie in a superhero franchise, or really any franchise, is not complete without bringing something new to the table. And while Wolverine is exciting enough, we do have some other cast members joining us this time around that have never actually appeared in Marvel-based movies at all yet. Aside from returning cast members, we also know that Emma Corrin, who played Princess Diana in The Crown, and superstar actor Matthew Macfadyen, well known most recently for his role in Succession, are also joining the cast of Deadpool 3. I'm gonna be honest, these two incredible dramatic actors never would have been who I thought would be in Deadpool 3, but they had Brad Pitt playing an invisible character and being seen for a total of like 2 seconds in Deadpool 2, so I guess anything is possible. Reynolds also highlighted how Macfadyen will be on set each and every day during the production of Deadpool 3, essentially confirming that the actor will have a major part in the movie. Reynolds said, quote, "I think Matthew Macfadyen is probably one of the most interesting actors working today, and the fact that he's going to be on our Deadpool set each and every day is kind of nerve-wracking for me. I'll be starstruck." But we have no idea what role these actors will be playing, so this is where I open the floor to you. Who the heck are these actors playing? I don't know, do you?
Number 10, Franklin Richards warps reality. Perhaps the Fantastic Four were well known once, but were forgotten due to a mishap with Franklin's powers. In the comics, Franklin Richards is the son of Susan Storm and Reed Richards, who happen to have reality warping powers, or at least that's what he was known for. At one point, Franklin even uses said powers to protect his family and much of the world from the villain Onslaught. When many of the beloved superheroes from the Marvel main continuity universe are forced to sacrifice themselves in order to defeat Onslaught and protect the Earth, Franklin subconsciously uses his powers to instead place these heroes, saving them, keeping them safe in a pocket dimension known as Counter-Earth, which takes the shape and form of a child's toy ball. This new world he'd created would be known as Heroes Reborn in regards to the reality and history of it, as the heroes who lived there actually did not know of their former lives, but thought that they had always existed in this version of the universe, which they saw as the main one, at least at that time. Eventually, however, they'd return, rediscover their prior lives, and in essence be resurrected back into the main comic book continuity. Number 9. Multiversal shenanigans, bring them in. It's also possible when it comes to how the Fantastic Four will enter the MCU that it won't be Franklin warping reality to bring them back or possibly explain their temporary absence so far, but that the actual Marvel Cinematic Multiverse will play a key role. We were first introduced to a version of Mr. Fantastic in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There, at one point, Strange and America Chavez, who has the power to travel to alternate universes via star portals that she punches into existence, traveled to the alternate reality of Earth 838. In this reality, the Illuminati are the main superhero team and have created a peaceful and idyllic Earth through their combined genius and power. One of the members of the team is their reality's Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So it is possible that instead of Reed coming from the MCU main reality designated Earth 616, that he will come to 616 from Earth 838. He'll have to come back to life first though, since Wanda kinda turned him into noodles in MOM. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime, and give them a follow, give them a subscribe, show them some support. Number 8. John Krasinski reprises the Mr. Fantastic role. This one is a bit of a hot take, depending on your opinion of this fan cast made real in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or at least made kind of real. Krasinski was a fan favorite when it came to fan-made dream cast for the Fantastic Four, and the role of the team's leader, Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. However, then the dream became a reality in the nightmare-fueled Multiverse of Madness. And for fans, while some remained hyped, others were surprisingly less impressed with the performance. However, that hasn't stopped people from speculating that Krasinski, as the alternate Reed of Earth 838 in the MCU, couldn't also stay on to take up the role in the main continuity as well. Number 7. Off-world. Where have the Fantastic Four been all this time? Have they existed in this world or not? And if they have existed there, possibly in plain sight, how did we only now notice them in terms of this story? Well, knowing the Fantastic Four, they go to all sorts of places. In fact, they have had many different space adventures, so it's very possible that this whole time they were actually just in outer space. Perhaps they were called there years ago by the Silver Surfer just as they first got their powers, and so instead of becoming iconic Earth-based heroes in this universe, they only return to Earth later after becoming a known superhero team in the cosmos. Kind of like the explanation we got for Captain Marvel in her origin film, being so powerful and iconic, but still pretty unknown when it comes to Earth. Number 6. Another dimension? Not only are the Fantastic Four known for being cosmic travelers, but they're also known for going to entirely different dimensions in the comics. In fact, their series was one of the first series to introduce the concept of the multiverse, with adventures that involved them traveling to alternate dimensions, such as the Negative Zone and the Microverse. In fact, I believe the Negative Zone first appeared in Fantastic Four like back in the 60s. I think it was in issue 51 of that original series, so it could be possible they got their powers and were trapped for years in another dimension, shortly after getting them, which is why no one on Earth knows who they are, despite them possibly being around for some time in the MCU. Kind of like how Hope's mother, Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp, was believed dead, but in actuality was trapped in the quantum realm for years in the MCU. Number 5. Hiding in secret. Another theory, what if, instead of adventuring off-world or being trapped in another dimension, the Fantastic Four were around, but we just didn't know about it? Let's not forget that the superhero team and Richards' family themselves are not only powerful, but also known for having some of the smartest team and family members around. Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and their daughter Valeria Richards are all known for their brilliance in the comics, so it's possible that they simply didn't want to be known. Like how the Eternals were once known heroes on Earth, but preferred to live in secret later on, allowing themselves to be forgotten for years, due to them believing that they had actually accomplished their mission eons ago. Perhaps the Fantastic Four thought it best if no one knew about them, and they have simply been working in secret to protect humanity. Or perhaps they simply didn't feel compelled to use their powers to act as front-facing superheroes, simply preferring to work more behind the scenes and help humanity in more subtle and perhaps nuanced ways. Number 4. The Baxter Building origins. The Baxter Building might also be headed our way, and while the Fantastic Four have yet to appear in the MCU, what if we have already seen their future home. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man in the MCU, initially had his own mega tower known as Stark Tower, part of his company and his own personal headquarters. When he became a mainstay in the Avengers team, he decided to turn Stark Tower into the Avengers Tower, making it the team's headquarters. However, in Spider-Man Homecoming, it was shown that the Avengers were actually moving to a new headquarters, with Tony's right-hand man, Happy Hogan, confirming that Stark had, yes, sold the tower. But just who bought it? Well, one of the theories is that it was purchased by the Fantastic Four and will actually reappear once more reinvented, but this time as one of their famous headquarters from the comics, the Baxter Building. Number 3. Henry Cavill as Dr. Doom. Amid the rumors of casting, we recently got a fake out for the entire FF main cast from D23. Well, the fake out wasn't actually from D23, but rather was someone trolling on the internet that the main cast had been announced there. Among those shown to be cast in this falsified picture was Henry Cavill as Dr. Doom. Okay, so it hasn't been confirmed yet, as we got actually zero casting intel at D23 this year for Fantastic Four, but how cool would that casting be, right? Do we not all want that to happen? That'd be super cool. Number 2. Agatha Harkness? Another noted and important thing in regards to the Fantastic Four is that Agatha Harkness could somehow provide a lead into the family's appearance in the MCU. In the comics, Agatha Harkness is actually at one point the nanny for a young Franklin Richards. Yeah, that happened. While we know Agatha as a villain currently in the MCU, manipulating and battling against Scarlet Witch in WandaVision, in reality she is a much more neutral figure in the comics, and considering she's getting her own show, recently retitled to Agatha Coven of Chaos, it's possible that there could be hints and Easter eggs for the FF MCU narrative there, perhaps even an introduction to the family prior to their own film. Number 1. Secret Wars tie-in? How could it be possible if we get Earth 838 Reed that he'd even be alive? As I said before, he was basically turned into pasta when Wanda stretched him so thin he seemingly died. At least that's what we think happened. Either he somehow survived this horrifying scene, or some other event will be needed to restore and resurrect him. We know we are getting some version of Secret Wars in the MCU, and this could be the answer. In the 2015 Secret Wars event in the comics, various realities were altered and mashed together as the multiverse was attempted to be salvaged following devastating incursions, which basically destroyed it. And following that mishmash reality, everything ended up restored, with some characters who had died previously even being returned to life. I cannot wait for everything to become a patchwork battle world potentially in the MCU, and I also hope, like in Secret Wars, Miles Morales also gets moved to our MCU version of the main continuity. Fingers crossed, that would be so cool.